We've talked to Troy Fautanu here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Well, now we've talked to Broderick Jones and Dan Moore Jr. A full update on how the offensive tackle battle is going and how the offensive line culture is growing, as well as a breaking news story from the guy who broke it himself, Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com, about the future of James Daniels with the Steelers. All that here and more on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you a daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app that you need to download right now. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase of tickets. Terms and conditions apply. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan.
Oh, I like that.
I added some emphasis for you guys. You know I love you guys over there at SteelersNow.com. But Alan, we're going to get to your breaking news story, which was huge, by the way, about James Daniels. The Steelers have said they're not going to negotiate with him in the middle before this offseason's over. So that's going to be a big deal. But we'll get to that. But I want to talk to you about some of the things that we heard from the Steelers offensive tackles today. We talked with Troy Fautanu. I included some of those clips in last week's shows. Y'all can go back and watch those. But we got a chance to have some more, some bigger discussions with Broderick Jones and Dan Moore Jr. And I really am getting the sense that this offensive line, there's something brewing here that could make this group a lot, not just a little bit better, but a lot better this upcoming season.
I think they have the potential to be a lot better. I really like the mix of old and young, of experience and athletic profile. I think the way the schedule plays out with those, sort of a wade into the pool and not a dive, the bigger, heavier games at the end of the year, I think will help them, because I do worry about the cohesion and the chemistry. Like, you are potentially making a lot of changes. If they do what I think they're going to do and move Broderick Jones to left tackle and start Troy Fautanu at right tackle and start Zach Frazier at center, you're talking about 3/5 new, or at least in new positions. And only one of those guys with significant NFL experience, and he didn't have very much college experience. And so I think there's questions about how good they're going to be September 8th. But I think long-term, they have a really, really promising mix in terms of the personalities, the way they fit together, the athleticism, and very specifically the fit for this scheme. Like, if you were going to build an Arthur Smith offensive line, if you were like, okay, we hired Arthur Smith, we can't go back into a time machine and get the 2020 Tennessee Titans offensive line. This is like the closest thing to it. Like, they're building another version of that brick wall that led the way for Derrick Henry. And I think I have a lot of high hopes for what they're doing on the offensive line.
Same here. And we've seen the talent, but I'm also appreciating the maturity that we're hearing from these guys and their answers. Broderick Jones, I want y'all to listen to this. Now, part of this will be a little bit spoiler for the Dan Moore part that we'll show later in the show. But one thing Dan Moore told us when we spoke to him on Wednesday at OTAs for the Steelers is that Broderick Jones is taking the rookies under his wing already. Like, I joked with him. I was like, so do you guys still mess with Broderick and tell him to do stuff like he's a rookie? And he was like, oh yeah, we still mess with him because he needs that. But at the same time, this guy's already, like he said, he sits with Zach Frazier in every meeting. He's talking to the rookies. He's showing them everything that he learned. And Broderick Jones, I want y'all to listen to, there's several things that he covers here. One, he covers his own versatility, how he's built that and how important that is and how he sees that. He talks about his confidence in Troy Fautanu, what's he seen in them. But listen to how he talks about nurturing the rookies, especially Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu, and how that fits into what the Steelers is. This is a longer clip, so bear with us as you're going to hear Broderick Jones take several questions here. But I'm just really impressed by how this young man in his second year in the NFL is approaching his second season. Here's Broderick Jones at Steelers OTAs on Wednesday.
Seems like a tackle. Some guys can switch sides, some guys can't. You never seem to have an issue with it. Why is it?
Honestly, I just think it's because of my versatility. I would say like I'm pretty good, like being able to move sideways, lateral. So just me going from side to side, I feel like it's not a big deal because I've honestly been doing it all my life until I got to Georgia, where I just like stayed on the left side. But before then, I was always moving around, playing different positions. So, just me being available to the team, any way possible that I can, to help. So.
Do you care which side you play?
Not really. As long as I'm on the field, it don't matter where I'm playing. Like, that's the biggest thing to me, just being able to make it on the field, That's, like, the biggest dream because, like, me being able to play, like, at the highest level against the best talent, it's the dream come true. So just being able to put my abilities on display, on either side, I feel like that sets me apart from a lot of tackles, like, in the league, and it gives me an advantage. So,
do you think you need the prep left in case you end up there? Or?
Yeah, you definitely got to fine tune yourself, on both sides, just in case anything happens. You got to be prepared because like with me playing right last year, with me going back to the left, it felt a little different just because of it's a different atmosphere. Like the players are different. They have so many different moves. They're so quick, they're so fast. So you got to be able to like fine tune your skills on both sides and just be able to lock in and focus. Because going from right to left, it is difficult. I'm not going to say it isn't, because when I first started doing it, when they first moved me to the right side last year, it was difficult for me. It took me a couple weeks to, get right, and so it is. But once you have it locked in, you'll be all right.
How much left are you doing in these sessions?
I take a couple sets here and there, do a couple bag drills. I do a couple reps versus Alex, Nick. Man, that'll be it for them.
So, Broderick, if it came down to it then, and like Dan were to get hurt in game,
I will be able to play left, yes.
You could just jump right over there.
Yeah, I will be able to play.
So it's a little hard to learn left to right for you because left. Was
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, just moving without the fine tuning, it'll be difficult. But if you got practice, if you're able to practice at it, and you have a little time to like actually like figure out like what works for you on each side, then you'll be all right.
Dan said that you could take more of a role talking to the younger guys. You sit with Zach Frazier during like the meetings and everything. What's led to like you wanted to be there for guys? You're a second-year player yourself.
Just last year, just me like coming in and knowing how it is, trying to learn all new things. You got so much coming at you at once. So, I just try and, take the edge off of them and, just like let them know like you're just getting here. Like it's not going to be all peaches and cream. Like you're going to get beat. You're going to lose. Like you just got to be able to adjust and get back in there at the end of the day.
What's different about you this year as far as things that you can see that maybe you realize I didn't know this or I couldn't see this last year?
It's just a lot of different things, Sorry. Like just everything, like all the way down from the set to footwork to hand placement, like it's a lot of different things you have to learn, once you get to the next level. So you got to take your time with it. You can't try and rush through it because you got to be able to focus on one thing, lock in with it, and make it one of your like biggest assets. You know what I'm saying? So you can't go from one thing and then try and jump to the next thing in the same day when you didn't even figure out the first thing. You know what I'm saying? So just being able for them, to figure out one thing at a time. I try and tell them, like, don't try and rush it. Because, like, that's something I tried to do last year. I was trying to rush things, always just trying to hurry up and get through with stuff. So just like me talking to them, I hope it helps. And then hopefully they can just grow from it.
Alan, that sounds like a guy who learned a lot in his rookie season. I want to get your thoughts and explain more of our insights into what Broderick Jones just said. We'll do that on the after this first break here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time, the app that you need to download right to your phone right now to buy tickets to your favorite events without it being stressful. We now know when the NFL schedule is. We also know the NBA Finals are coming up soon. Whether you want to get NFL games for next year as a Steelers fan, or you're out there and you want to experience some amazing basketball with the NBA Finals coming up, you can book all those tickets on Game Time, an app you can download right to your phone, or you can go to their website, gametime.co. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They give you killer deals on last-minute tickets, and they have best price guarantee that can't be beat. You can save up to 60% off buying tickets, even tickets at the last minute. If you want Christmas Day tickets for Steelers versus Chiefs, they got those. Game Time's on it. The home opener against the Chargers, you bet Game Time's got that too. Plan your trip to Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh to root on the Steelers, or check out all the different concerts that are coming to Pittsburgh right now. Nicki Minaj just got added for September, and there's so many different artists coming to the city of Pittsburgh here. So Get the tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. And remember, their best price guarantee means that if you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, I want to get your thoughts on all the different things. Broderick Jones touched on a lot of there. He touched on his versatility. He touched on how he's trying to help guys, things that he sees in himself that he's trying to help the rookies of this year avoid, things that he wants to improve this year. What speaks the loudest to you about just the way that he's able to address things in his second OTAs as a Steeler?
Yeah, Broderick Jones is younger than Troy Fautanu and Mason McCormick, which is like easy to forget, I think, when you listen to that video and you hear just his confidence. You know, I think he's always been an incredible athlete, right? When the Steelers traded up to get him, you know, I think the thing that made that move make sense was the athletic profile. It was just, oh my God, look at how big this guy is, and look at how explosive he is, and look at the way he moves. But I think the confidence in himself and his abilities, that I think that's like it's hard to say he's arrived, right? Like there was struggles in his game last year, you know, like especially in pass protection. And I think if he had to play left tackle tomorrow and start, I'm not sure it would go smoothly. But I just think, you know, the confidence and leadership. I'm not sure that was in the cards when you draft a guy like that. Like that's a bonus to me. Like you could see the athleticism, you could measure it, you could see it on tape, you could see just the incredible physical power, and you knew he could block some dudes. But I think the other parts of that, I mean, look, you're not getting drafted in the first round, 14th overall, because you're a good leader and because you're confident. Like, I'm a good leader and I'm confident, you know. Like, I couldn't make the freshman team. Like, but I think that's the part of it that is like okay. Like, not like I think that's what separates guys that are really good players from guys that are all pros. And like, I'm not saying that Broderick Jones is going to be an all pro, but I think it should open your eyes about the potential ceiling for him. I'm still not saying he's arrived. I'm not saying he's going to be great if he plays wherever he plays this year, but I think, man, I think the Steelers really have something there in that young man if he continues on the trajectory he's on.
Absolutely. I think they certainly do have something there. I've said for a while, I thought Broderick Jones was one of my top players in the draft last year. The fact that they got him where they got him, I thought was fantastic for them. And it seems like he's not just, you know, taking steps for himself. Other players are noticing as well. I think, you know, the guy that everyone wants to get replaced this year, Dan Moore Jr., I think he's handled this whole situation as well as anybody could in the way that you hear him talk about Fautanu. Even like, I'm going to play this clip here. It's going to be shorter than the Broderick Jones one, but he talks about Fautanu, and he acknowledges like that guy's much better at doing that where he's at in his career than I ever was. Like he's doing things I can't. Like he's acknowledging that, but he's also still not losing. It's not that he doesn't have confidence in himself. He's still talking about things that he can do. And I think it's a really interesting place the Steelers find themselves with this young offensive line they put together. Here's Dan Moore Jr. in the Steelers locker room after Wednesday's OTAs.
You've been here for 3 years, and you've seen that's not what it's like when you do things a different way. How do you feel like it's helping you, at least in your mindset, getting ready for training?
Oh man. At this point, with me being so far along in my career, I say, I kind of already know what to expect, I guess you could say. I'm just enjoying my time being out there, honestly. I feel like a vet.
As far as Troy now, he's handling moving over to right. What are you seeing in terms of any struggles he might be having, and is it similar to when you've tried to have to go over there?
Yeah, I think Troy is doing a really good job with his transition. I definitely wouldn't compare him to me because he looks a lot better at right tackle than I did for sure. He has good feet. He's got long arms. He's got a lot of tools that's going to make him a really good player for sure.
Is Broderick enjoying not being the rookie that you guys can tell what to do all the time now?
Nah, we still gonna tell him what to do because he need it. But he's got some playing experience now, so he knows he's gonna have to step up into a bigger role this year.
What do you see as different about him this time around?
I liked how he's leading, how he's helping out the younger guys, helping out Zach in meetings, sitting next to him, and Troy after practice. It's cool to just see a young guy who I was helping last year transition to a leader and now helping that younger guy. That's what it's all about.
So what have you tried to improve on since last year?
I'd say my hands, definitely a pass pro, and my feet, my run game, being grounded, being more stout.
Is there anything specific you either talk to Troy or Zach about trying to improve for them as a rookie coming in?
Not necessarily coming in. I guess the biggest thing for Troy with tackles is just snap count. That's the hardest thing to grasp. As defenders are so much faster off the ball. And then Zach, for him, is more so of a mental game. Playing center, you got so many things to memorize, snap count, IDs. So just trying to calm him down a little bit, take a little bit of the anxiety away from him, and just ease his mind a little bit.
So Dan Moore talking about these things there, and I can't help but appreciate how Dan Moore is hyping up the two dudes that are ultimately going to replace him on this team. Dan Moore is the team's left tackle. He's in his 4th year. This is his contract year. He needs to prove himself. If Dan Moore gets benched in the middle of the season, it won't mean he's done in the NFL. Like he's going to get a job after that, but it's going to hurt his value. Whereas if let's say he plays really well and it makes it really tough to bench him this year, that puts the Steelers in a great situation because one, they'll be getting good tackle play from a veteran, and that can make it so that Fautanu can kind of grow into the role even more this year. But two, it'll help Dan Moore when he's looking for a new contract and he's like, hey, I deserve this amount of money because I'm a 4-year starter, and you look at my 4th year where I'm playing that well. I can't help but think when I hear him talk about how Fautanu's coming along, how Broderick Jones is already being a leader, and the resetting of this room, I can't help but feel like there is some sort of culture growing with this in this offensive line that could be very healthy for it, Alan.
It's really interesting because I think if you look at the 2021 team, right, where they go with Dan Moore and Kendrick Green as rookies, they go with a horrendous stopgap guard option. Just kind of threw it together, right?
Yeah.
And I think it would be kind of the height of irony if, really, Andy Weidel and Omar Khan are in the positions they're in, partially because of how much of a failure that attempted a rebuild of the offensive line was. And, if this one works, they're going to owe a lot of its success to Dan Moore, to one of the guys that they're trying to replace. Look, I think Dan Moore is going to get a big contract next year. I think people are going to be shocked at what the rest of the NFL is going to value his experience, regardless of how it's gone here in Pittsburgh. I'm also not entirely sure that, we're not going to see Dan Moore play this year. The Steelers, despite drafting Troy Fautanu in the 1st round, are not casting Dan Moore aside. And this whole drama about who plays where. Oh my God. Like it does not matter. It just does not matter. Put them where, pick the 2 best tackles and play them wherever you want. It doesn't matter. It just, I understand that you have to, if you're the player, you have to make an adjustment, but whichever decision the team makes does not matter at the end of the day. Just pick the best ones and go with it. I think it will be Broderick Jones on the left and Troy Fautanu on the right. It could be Dan Moore on the left and Broderick Jones on the right. It could be Dan Moore on the left and Troy Fautanu on the right. I think the Steelers, I think Mike Tomlin is open to all of those possibilities right now. And so I think caring who plays where now is weird. Look, you know why I know this is weird? Because of Aaron Shamplin. And let me just leave that there for a moment. Do you know who Aaron Shamplin is? About the 6th running back on the depth chart, right? Undrafted guy out of Harvard in his 3rd year from pro football, was in the XFL last year. Nobody has any expectations for Aaron Shamplin, right? Nobody cares what Aaron Shamplin. I talked to him for like 10 minutes today. Obviously went to Harvard, bright guy. Interesting story. Working on it for SteelersNow.com. But he has like 40 reps with the first team offense in these OTAs. So like that is how much these reps mean. Like that is the level of importance of what is happening right now. Is that like Aaron Shamplin, like, oh, who was the left tackle for Aaron Shamplin? Like, and I'm not belittling that the guy, like,
right.
It's just that like you have to take what is happening in the context of what is happening around them. Like it's not that stressful right now. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter right now. Right. This is going to be something that we see get sorted out more in training camp. And then even after training camp, when the season gets started, there will be questions about should things change if things don't look as well. Like if the Steelers aren't running the ball as well, they'll say, hey, is there some flipping we could do here to make this a more suitable to run the ball type of team?
And I think are they absolutely maximizing their potential? Like if they had just decided on April 1st, Broderick Jones is going to be a left tackle, Troy Fautanu is going to right tackle, we're never doing anything else. Those are where those guys are going to play. Like, would they maximize what they could get out of those guys on day one if they had done that approach? Yes. However, how many times in the last 4 years would have been really convenient for the Steelers if Dan Moore could play right tackle? Don't they think if they had it to do over again, they would have taken some time in April and May of 2021 and taught Dan Moore how to play right tackle? Like, it would have been hella convenient over the intervening time if they had done that. So, like, I think in some ways this is a bit of a lesson learned here, where it is better to have your offensive lineman be able to do more than one thing than super specialized guys that you can only trust to play one place. Some people are going to get hurt. Things are going to happen unexpectedly, in their development that are they end up in different places than you thought they were going to be. Like, build some well-rounded offensive linemen. This is the time to do it. Go block for Aaron Shamplin.
Aaron Shamplin. I think all very good points by you there, Alan. I look at the Steelers situation right now. I think I'm right with you. I think Broderick Jones ends up starting on the left and Troy Fautanu ends up starting on the right. I also think that the Steelers are looking for how to best handle this situation to get something out of it. I mean, to get whatever they can out of it, whether it's just two starters in a trade to get another player, however that could work out. But I do think the Steelers are in a very good position right now for how this offensive line is growing right now. They need to continue to foster. They need Pat Meyer to be involved. They need to make sure that these guys are doing the right thing. But I think right now I'm liking a lot of the things that I hear when I'm asking questions about, how this team's coming together and how this offensive line is coming together. I want to talk about another member of the offensive line here next and some breaking news that Alan had on SteelersNow.com. That and more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, y'all did the breaking news thing on Wednesday when you talked to James Daniels, and you got the goods there talking about how the Steelers are not going to be talking extensions with a contract extension with James Daniels, who's on the last year of his deal, by the way. And that raised a lot of eyebrows because he was a big signing to a 3-year, $65 million deal. in 2022. And, I think he's been a really good addition for the team. He's solved a guard problem. He's been very consistent for the team. What's your makeout or read on why this is happening? Is this just the Steelers just being cautious because technically they're going to owe a lot of people money next year? Or do you feel like they feel that the Steelers don't see James Daniels as someone they need to keep with all the young players they've invested in bringing in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like totally surprised too often by an answer. You talk about raised eyebrows in my interview. I'm like, what? You said what? You said what now? I think he's a guy that I'm not totally surprised that maybe they couldn't get a deal done, but I think I'm surprised that it's off the table at this point already.
Right.
Like, that's surprising to me. And so I'm a little interested to see what happens at the position. I think, look, it's been a big offseason for offensive linemen. We're seeing $100 million contracts to guards for the first time ever. It is part of it, much like Najee Harris, where the Steelers are very happy with the player, but are not necessarily interested in playing in the contract space that is being established by the rest of the league. I think that's a possibility. Maybe, I don't know that. I don't think anybody drafts a 4th round pick with the idea that, he's just going to replace our starter next year. No problem. Yeah, we got that. But I do think that Mason McCormick was drafted with the idea that, look, James Daniels' contract is expiring. Nate Herbert's contract is expiring. Isaac Seumalo's going to be 31. The future of the guard position is probably not on the roster. So let's take a swing at that this year anyway and see what we have. I'm not really sure, though, why the Steelers are not even really going to entertain contract talks. I was pretty surprised to hear that. And we'll see. Maybe they feel like they want to spend that money elsewhere right now. They do have cap space, both in 2024 and in 2025. So they can make it happen if they wanted to. And that's really, honestly, no matter what happens with the other guys in contracts, whether it's Najee Harris or Pat Freiermuth, Cam Hayward, it's hard to envision them getting to a point where they would just be like, no, sorry, not enough money, can't pay James Daniels. It's not a cap thing, and so I think that makes it a little curious. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see how this plays out now.
Yeah, that's the thing about James Daniels is that I'm really intrigued to see how this plays out for him. I thought he's been the most consistent offensive lineman they've had the past couple seasons. I think that he has brought steadiness to that group, and he's brought reliability. And something else that's been talked about this week, accountability, and that getting that from Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator. And I want to talk about the Arthur Smith angle another day, but I'm specifically wanting to focus on this here. Alan, I do feel like unless you have someone lined up that is that guy, I do think that getting rid of James, or not if the Steelers don't bring James Daniels back, I think that would be a mistake, because I think that he has been such a good offensive lineman, and he's not a superstar, but you don't always need superstars. You need the people who are going to support the superstar. You need a guy, and you need guys who are going to be the true game changers. And then you need good role players. And I think James Daniels is a very good role player, and sometimes he is a game changer with the way that he blocks. But that's again why I was just a little confused as to why there was a question about if he would get to sign an extension with the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that wasn't even the way I phrased the question. It was more like, hey, what do you hope happens?
Right.
And he was like, well, it's not going to happen. So, okay. All right. Well, fair enough.
There you go.
There we go. But yeah, obviously it could still happen. They could still, sign an extension in March before free agency, and we've seen time and time again, Juju Smith-Schuster, Terrell Edmonds. It happens lots of times when guys go into free agency, don't find what they like out there, and end up coming back. So it's not like it closes a door. It seems unusual. I will say that. And so we'll see how that plays out. I suggested when I was talking to Zachary Smith on my Steelers Afternoon Drive podcast today, I think sometimes one thing that teams will do is if they look at a situation and say, hey, we don't think this is going to happen for whatever reason, maybe they think it's better being upfront with the guy. I actually got a comment. They were like, this is awful. Like, why would you play through injury if they're not going to re-sign him? I was like, I think if you're the player, you would rather a team be upfront with you about what's going to happen. Yeah, this is not James Daniels' first team. It's not his first time in free agency. It's not his first rodeo. He knows how the game is played. He knows how the business works. I think he would probably, I mean, honestly, the way he said it was like, yeah, so I don't have to worry about it. And like, it was not like a sarcastic, I don't have to worry about it. It was literally like, hey, they're not going to talk about it. Then I'm just going to play the season. We'll worry about the contract when it's time to worry about a contract. And, you know, I think there's a level of respect there for that. I don't know what he would like to happen. But look, talk about Dan Moore getting paid. James Daniels is going to get paid too. We've seen some big guard contracts this offseason, and I think he's been I think you said the perfect word, consistent. He has that is so valuable at that position.
Yes.
You don't need to be a star. Like, look at what Kevin Dotson got paid. And I think we all, as people who watch the Pittsburgh Steelers, saw the talent and the potential in Kevin Dotson, but the consistency was just never there. Yep. And even in LA, even though he was better than he was in Pittsburgh, I still don't think the consistency was really there. And look what he got paid. And now you're talking about a guy who is every bit as athletic, every bit as smart, and much more consistent. Yeah, James Daniels is going to get a big contract from Pittsburgh or somebody else.
I agree.
And only 27 years old, hitting free agency for the second time. That's crazy.
He's got a lot of experience. He's young. I just think it makes a lot of sense to be looking at him, and for the Steelers to be looking to try to keep him around. But like we've been saying, it does appear that there is a culture developing. For the offense.
You're talking about a guy who has no reason to be here.
Yeah,
he's here, hands on with all these young guys, so huge credit, I think, goes out to, if this offensive line rebuild works out, guys like James Daniels, Dan Moore, Isaac Seumalo, whether they end up being a long-term part of this group or not, I think deserve a huge credit for helping develop these young guys.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, at PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. My socials are at @Saunders_PGH. And my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive, can be found on our YouTube channel or anywhere you find podcasts every weekday at 5. I also do practice reports after practice with Nick Faribaugh. We've got all our practice video and interviews and stuff there on our YouTube page. And coming up, Steelers Now, we've got a story from Derek Bell about Joey Porter Jr. and his ceiling and potential as a cornerback. So you're going to want to check that out as well.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders. Alan, thanks much for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. This has been your Thursday episode this week. Subscribe to this channel subscribe to this YouTube page to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting apps to hear all the episodes there. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com to go there. Thanks again, Alan. We'll see you all tomorrow to finish up the week and get our final notes on this week's OTAs here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.